Welcome back to In the Studio here at Davis Media Access. I'm Autumn Labbe-Renault. My guests today are Vera Sandronsky and Ellen Kolarik, who serve as the co-chairs of Interfaith Housing Justice Davis. We're going to learn about the organization, including its co-sponsorship of a November 17th event featuring author Lea Rothstein. Welcome, Vera and Ellen, and thanks for joining me here today in our remote studio.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for having us.
We're going to start with, I'd like to know, when did Interfaith Housing Justice Davis start, and tell us what the organization does, what it exists to do.
Yeah. So it is a bit of a long story about how we got started. It really goes back to November 2019 when Richard Rothstein, which is Leah's dad, was doing a presentation on the book he wrote, The Color of Law. The League of Women Voters in town had invited him to do a presentation to a packed house. I actually did not attend, but two of my friends in my church, the Lutheran Church of the Incarnation, went. And when they returned from this, they really urged me to read the book. At that point, I had done a lot of work already on my own, learning about interpersonal racism. But this book was the first time I really understood how the structural piece maintains racism in our society and is really a major obstacle to creating a more diverse and fair community. So my friends, that would be Lee Grayson and Jill Van Zanten, and I put together a 4-session program for my congregation, Lutheran Church of the Incarnation. And kind of as a whim, like 2 weeks before the program, we put an ad out in the Enterprise inviting the public to join us. And to our surprise, there was really a lot of interest. And in the end, we actually had to limit participation to about 40 people. And when we were done, there was about 20 people that were from Incarnation, and the other 20 were from interfaith organizations in town, and then some others. And it was a really interested group. That is to say, they stuck with the program, and like 95% of the folks that started finished the program. And most everyone said, okay, this is important, but what do we do? One of the things that happened as an evolution of this was several congregations came to us and asked to use our material so they could present it to their congregations, which was fine. We did that. And another group of people were then introduced on a deeper level to this information. Round about that time, the housing element was becoming a big topic in the community because the city was asking for citywide input. And one of the folks that had participated in our conversation proposed that we get together and talk about the housing element. And that really stimulated the first meeting of Interfaith Housing Justice. We reached out to all the people that had participated in the several manifestations of the program that we had done. And by the end of that 2-hour meeting, people had already decided that we needed to create some kind of a policy statement, which we felt our own organizations could back. And at this point, why don't I hand it over to Vera, because she was a major factor in creating those first draft advocacy statements that we put together.
Okay.
Right.
Vera,
So
before you do that,
Oh, sorry.
before you do that, let me just ask, why interfaith? I think there's a reason this came about as an interfaith effort, and I'd like to get to that before we move on.
Sure. Well, most of the people that had come were part of a faith organization, and we felt that this would be an easy powerhouse really to tap into. If people, if we could share statements crafted by our group to our home organizations that our organizations were willing to back, it would help provide what is it? What I'm looking for? Impetus or power. That there is a large group of people that feel these are important issues which our council, our city, and our neighbors need to face and grapple with and progress forward in a positive way.
Great, thank you.
So it
Vera,
started as an interfaith group, but in fact, we welcome other people. If anyone wants to come and they want to work on the topics that we're working on, we're good with that. It's all good.
Okay. Vera, I didn't mean to interrupt you. You were about to say.
Yeah, so I was just going to add that I joined the A Color of Law book study group, and in its second iteration, Ellen was part of the first. And then I had kind of almost concurrently really been starting to work on local housing issues with Georgina Valencia. I met her, well, I knew her socially, but I also started talking with her about housing in Davis in particular, and learned about an opportunity for the community to get engaged and provide comment on the housing element, which was going through a cycle of public comment and review before being submitted to the state Housing and Community Development Agency for approval. So, so when we had our first meeting in June of 2021, after the book studies had completed, we talked, we had members from several faith organizations, and we started talking about, well, what do we want to do first? And because of the status and the need for public comment on the housing element, the city's housing element, which is basically the plan that gets submitted to the state agency that oversees this area in local communities. They review and have to approve it. So it's a very big deal. The document gets approved and then it's in place for many years. We decided that our first advocacy to the city council would be about adding the draft housing trust fund to the housing element. The housing element is I don't remember the number of pages, but probably several hundred-page document. And the draft housing element was a document that had been developed by the Social Services Commission to put forward some specific proposals and ideas to help address the continuum of affordable housing needs in Davis, from homeless to renters to first-time home buyers. So that was the first advocacy action the group decided to do and draft a letter, then supported by our respective faith organizations, and then submitted to the city council and to the Davis Enterprise and the Vanguard.
So housing is perennially a hot topic in this town. As we are a university town, we suffer from similar problems in other university towns, which is namely a scarcity of available housing and the high cost of housing. So I want to ask you the question, why is your work necessary? But I want you to dig into what I just said a little bit more. As you've been doing this work for a few years now, what have you learned along the way, and what is it that makes your work germane in our community?
Well, I mean, I think that we've been together for maybe a year and a half, not quite that. So we still feel relatively new. Just wanted to express that, perspective. We're learning as we develop our understanding of what we can do and what housing issues are and what actions local communities can take. I think we're learning more about structural issues and the needs to increase revenues to the city for the continuum to support the continuum of housing needs. I think we're learning about some of the issues that have been long-term and are ongoing about, approving affordable housing projects in Davis. So I think that it's all important because as faith communities, we share a view of wanting to make address sort of the lack of equity and in that we see around us. And one of the forms it takes is in housing. So, I mean, we believe that working on this and looking at the sort of specific actions that come before our city council to make decisions on and trying to influence those will help make our community a more welcoming place.
Okay. And how do you meet? Who's involved? And how does one get involved or get more information if they're interested?
We would welcome anybody to participate in our monthly meetings. And if they wish to write to the Interfaith Housing Justice email, InterfaithHJD. I always have to actually look at what our...
It's on the screen, Ellen. So it's InterfaithHJD.
It's on the screen, thank you, because I always have to look it up to make sure I get it right. With an email, you can't make any mistakes. InterfaithHJD, thank you very much, at gmail.com. So if they want to connect with us through there, I can send them a link to join us on our Zoom meetings. Our meetings are by Zoom, by the way, which we have realized is a more inclusive way to get folks involved.
Okay, and you meet monthly. And I know we're going to talk about the event that's coming up November 17th shortly, but what are some of the maybe short range goals versus long range goals? You came together for specific purpose, but you've mentioned things like institutional racism and just kind of we've talked about the relative unavailability of housing. So if you could tell us what some of your short and long range goals are for your organization, that would be great.
So recognizing that structural racism is a very big thing, it was very clear from the get-go that if we're going to work on this issue, we needed to cut off a small piece. And so we elected to focus on the housing, primarily because we were students of the Color of Law book. And our goal initially was to identify low-hanging fruit type policies that we could help encourage our council to support. But we realized that we are simply volunteers who are learning as we're going. So there's a lot of self-education going on here. We have brought in a number of people to teach us about different aspects of housing. And while some of our short-term goals are policy issues, and I think Vera can talk to those more clearly, it's becoming more and more evident that a longer and larger and perhaps more important goal is working with our community for a culture change in how it perceives housing, to help our neighbors understand how housing, expanding housing at all the affordable housing levels, from housing the unsheltered to providing market rate but affordable homes for first-time home buyers, is important in developing a diverse community. And that is where the Rothstein event plays an important role. For us, this is a major focus right now because this is our way of getting the word out.
Vera, before we move on to talking about the event, is there anything you wanted to add to what Ellen just shared?
Yeah, I think that, we wanted to focus on, as Ellen said, low-hanging fruit. And well, it seemed low-hanging, but the kinds of specific, some of the examples of specific policy matters we've advocated for the city to address are still pending. So we've learned that, for example, changing a definition of first-time home buyer to be the federal definition, which means that people who own a home can't take advantage of buying a home at the affordable in the affordable rate. Those issues are still pending. So we've learned that what may seem straightforward to us actually can become a bigger undertaking with the city. I also just wanted to say that for longer term, we're very much aware of the need to increase the revenue stream that goes into meeting the needs of the whole continuum of affordable housing, from the needs of the unhoused to the renters to first-time home buyers, and being engaged with the community to understand how they can be part of the, in addition to educating about the problems, to be part of the community, a culture shift to understand how they can make decisions as individual residents of Davis to support structural fixes to housing needs, including potentially voting for a tax, which becomes very controversial. And even saying the word here makes me think, oh my gosh, people are going to have so many reactions to it. But we do need to realize it's not just a matter of individual policies, but some structural long-term fixes that we hope the community can get behind for the well-being and ongoing diversity, or I mean, not diversity, but increasing the diversity and ongoing viability of us as a city.
Okay. And in terms of connecting to the community, we're going to circle back around. You have an event coming up on November 17th at Congregation Bet Havarim at 6:30 p.m. And it's a hybrid event. I want to be clear, we communicate that. You can attend in person, or you can log on to Zoom and watch it, and it will be recorded for later viewing as well. This is co-sponsored with the Davis Area League of Women Voters, and it features an author we talked about earlier, Lea Rothstein. And what can you tell us about Ms. Rothstein, her upcoming book, and the work that she'll be focusing on and highlighting in this event?
Well, the book is called Just Action, and it's going to be available for purchase in the spring. So in truth, we have not read it because it's not out there to be read. But we have talked with her, and it will address actions which individuals and communities can take to start the difficult and slow work of breaking down structural racism in their communities, in the realm of housing. She has a lot of experience in the affordable housing arena. She's written affordable housing strategies, designed inclusionary zoning policies, assembled financing for affordable and mixed income housing developments, worked as a community and labor organism, has worked on racial justice and housing and public safety. So she's got a lot of experience in the realm, and I think she's really going to have a lot to share with us.
Great. And how did you decide to bring her here? How did that come about, and also the partnership with League of Women Voters?
Well, that's actually an interesting story. We had been working as the housing group for about a year when I had just a casual conversation with Georgina Valencia, who's been a very active participant and really a mover, a driver in our group and getting things done. But she had also helped set up the Richard Rothstein event with the League of Women Voters. And in this conversation, she said just how easy it was to talk with Richard Rothstein, and he would enjoy hearing from me. And I thought, well, you're right. We've done all this work on this book, and we've got this group going. He probably would like to know what our group has done because of his work. So I reached out to him by email and was startled that within less than 24 hours, he wrote back this lovely note about how he was thankful that we had done something and that it was very important to him that people were taking action. And then about a week later, he said he was going to offer a deal with us, that his daughter was willing to speak to us if we wanted her to come up. And initially we thought we just wanted to keep her for ourselves and just talk within our group to see how she might share with us ways that we could refocus our action to be more productive. But the more we thought about it, the more we thought this is really a wonderful opportunity to bring this back to the wider Davis community and to get more people involved. So kind of a Rothstein event 2.0. And that's where it started. It just got bigger and bigger. And then with Georgina's work, she'd already had this relationship with the League of Women Voters. She pulled them in. They were very happy to work with us, and we are happy to work with them. They've been a great partner. So that's history.
Yeah. Davis Media Access has partnered with the League of Women Voters for many years, and I agree, great partnership and great community service. So I wanted to share with our viewers that I think we're going to put back up the email for Interfaith Housing Justice Davis. You don't have a website at this time. There's the email. And so what we're going to do is encourage people to visit davismedia.org. Davismedia.org or Davis Media Access is going to help out with the recording of the Zoom that night, and we can make it available for a larger audience afterwards. And we're happy to support this effort in that way. And so we will share the event flyer with the bit.ly URL for people to register and get the Zoom link. So that's davismedia.org. Before we wrap up this interview, I want to give you, Vera and Ellen, any last thoughts on what you want to communicate to viewers about the work of Interfaith Housing Justice Davis, and I'll end there.
Well, we see bringing this speaker, bringing Lea Rothstein to our community as an important opportunity to just bring more education and awareness, and look for more people to join in the discussions going forward to make changes. So we're just very excited about this event and hope that it will be well attended, whether people choose to attend in person or by Zoom.
Great. I want to thank you both for joining me here today in the studio. And I want to remind viewers that you can catch this and many more episodes on Comcast Channel 15 here in Davis, and also on YouTube. Search for our channel, Davis Media Access. I'm Autumn Labbe-Renault, and thanks so much for tuning in.